sad. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we're gonna let it away. Tonight, we're gonna let it away. Tonight, we're gonna let it away. Just like the sunrise, we're gonna let it away.
Welcome back once again. This is Chris Report, and he assured me that since Simon's down in Boulders, folks, this is Chris Wyatt reporting from South Africa. Hello, wonderful folks around the world, wherever you may find yourselves. Today is January 16th, 2024. This is Chris live in central Pennsylvania with your daily inoculation, your daily jab of news without the lies. That's right, folks, with clear, cogent analysis of events around the world, starting in Africa and working our way out from there. Welcome back once again. Herzlich willkommen bei uns. Unsere Sendung heute kommt aus Pennsylvania. Ich bin der Oberst, Chris Wyatt, und ich freue mich, dass alle wieder bei uns heute sind, und ich hoffe, dass unsere Sendung bringt ein bisschen Aktualität. Bonjour tous, je suis très heureux que vous êtes là avec nous encore aujourd'hui pour notre transmission au sujet des actualités du quotidien, le 16e janvier 2024. Welcome back, folks. Servus, salve, hochandit, hotzihidijang. How's everybody doing out there? Welcome back to the program. It is snowing. It's hat geschneit here in Pennsylvania, folks. I woke up to, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. That's right. Just hear those sleigh bells ring-a-ling, jing, jing, jing-a-ling, jing. Yes, folks, snow outside is still falling at this hour, snarling the roads and delaying people's arrival at school and on to work. Well, snow in Pennsylvania. We've got it again. Welcome back, everybody. We're going to get to the news here shortly, but some headlines to discuss off the bat. Yesterday, South Africa decided to stick its nose into the business of the United States national security, and thereby once again jeopardizing its preferred duty-free access to our marketplace and under the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act by undermining U.S. national defense, by telling us to vacate our occupation of Guantanamo Bay. Clearly, once again, the African National Congress is not fully informed by the facts and typical rhetoric from leftist hate wankers. So that's happening. Iran has fired missile strikes into Iraq, attacking its neighbor in violation of international norms, international law, and a clear act of warfare. Also landing near the U.S. consulate in Erbil. And beyond that, ladies and gentlemen, a historic, dare I say, tsunami event took place in the United States Midwest last night in the state of Iowa, where the leftists have been deluding themselves, the fake stream legacy media, the cable liars have been telling themselves that it's Nikki, it's Nikki, 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 Nikki. No, it's not Nikki. It's Trump, 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 Trump. If you don't like that, that's your fault for creating this beast in 2015. You are the people who did this with $1 billion of free media, bringing him down the escalator and breaking into every news coverage for every Republican opponent so that he could lose to your favorite candidate, the vile, repulsive, America-hating, classified document stealing Hillary Clinton. And you created this beast. And then your lies about him, Russia collusion, your lies about him at the Ukraine phone call, your lies about him over real estate practices, your unwarranted lawsuits have brought us to the stage where Donald Trump is more popular today than he has ever been. People like an underdog. People do not like injustice. And what has been happening to Donald John Trump, whether you like him or not, you must admit is injustice. And what happens last night? Just desserts. Not only did Donald Trump become the first person ever to win over 50% of the Iowa caucus. Not only that, but he also smashed all records for the difference between candidates. In a multi-candidate race, the largest margin ever was 12.8% when Bob Dole won in 1996. Donald Trump won the race by 30 points last night over second place finisher Ron DeSantis. Nikki Haley, despite the favorable fawning coverage of a bootlicking media propped up by the Koch brothers, who are the favorite boogeymen for the left, well, now he can be the favorite boogeyman for the right. Despite being propped up by the Koch brothers' big dark money, $40 million pissed down the drain in Iowa, Nikki Haley finished a distant third in the Iowa caucus, thoroughly unpopular, getting no traction whatsoever with genuine conservatives, as it should be, because she is a Republican in name only, a deep state, bought and paid for rhino. There are your headlines, folks. We're going to talk about all those, but let's get into the Trump thing very quickly while I've got an audience building here. First off, 40 delegates at stake. The Republican nominee needs 1,215 delegates to win the nomination at the party's convention in Milwaukee, the 15th to the 18th of July this year. The path has begun. Progress along the path with the Iowa caucus. 20 delegates last night pledged to Donald Trump. That means he needs now 1,195 delegates to secure the nomination. New Hampshire comes next on Monday, the 23rd of January. Another 22 delegates at stake in New Hampshire. However, New Hampshire is different. It is a first past the post. Whoever gets the most votes gets all the delegates. If Trump gets them all, then the party's over. If Nikki Haley can somehow pull out a win in New Hampshire, she can stay in the race, despite her abysmal performance in Iowa and a waste of money. 40 delegates at stake last night. Donald Trump got half of them. Vivek Ramaswamy, recognizing the handwriting on the wall, gracefully withdrew from the race, congratulated Donald Trump, and offered his endorsement and support for Donald Trump last night. I can guarantee you that of the 7.7% of the votes that he received last night from the caucuses, virtually every one of those votes is a Donald Trump vote, and that will slide over to Trump. So if you add that to his total, that puts him up close to 60% in the Iowa caucus, an unbelievable record. Donald Trump won all but a single county in the state of Iowa. In the Johnson County, which is where the University of Iowa, the Hawkeyes are located, a county full of leftists. Also, Iowa allows Democrats to show up at the caucus and change their party affiliation just so they can vote, and then they change it back the next day. This happened in Polk County, the seat of the state where Des Moines is located. It happened also in Johnson County, where hundreds, if not thousands, of Democrats showed up to skew the election results and vote for Nikki Haley. And despite that, she still lost handily in Polk County. And she won Johnson County, the only county that Trump didn't carry, by a single vote. One vote. One vote. If I were the Iowa Republicans, I would recount that county and see if she actually won by a single vote. But she wins Iowa, Johnson County, by a single vote. It is not just a whitewash. It is not just a red wave. It is a tsunami. Donald Trump obliterated, absolutely obliterated his opponents last night. There's no look. Even the leftists, even the media, the corrupt cable media networks were saying the exact same wording I'm talking about last night. Much to their chagrin, much to their dismay, Donald Trump absolutely destroyed the opponents. Let me give you some of the figures here real quick. A question they asked last night, which I think is an unfair question because it's set up to make Iowans look like racists. It's a stupid question. I would have refused to answer the question unless they change it. What they should have said is, do criminal alien invaders who violate our sovereignty help or harm America? That should have been the question. But then they said, do immigrants help or harm America? Now, in order to make Iowa residents look like racist and xenophobes, they wrote that question in that fashion. 77% of caucus respondents said that immigrants hurt America, and only 23% said it helped. No doubt, many of those Republicans who are rhinos and those fake Democrats who became Republicans just to vote Nikki Haley in. Half of the votes that Nikki Haley received in Polk County, where Des Moines is at, were from Democrats who changed the registration on election night to help her secure 3 precincts, and she still lost that county. On school issues, public school issues, caucus goers said 51% of them said that racism is spoken about too much in schools. 71% said that schools are inappropriately teaching sexual orientation. And 74% said they are dismayed and it's inappropriate for gender identity to be taught in schools. That is a shocking figure. Of those who went to the caucuses, 60+% of those who showed up do not believe in the legitimacy of Joe Biden or the choosing of 2020. They do not believe in it. And 79% of the people who said that voted that way voted for Trump. But he also got 9% of the people who said that Joe Biden is legitimate. So that's surprising. 78%. Wow. The largest margin ever prior to this election in an Iowa caucus was 12.8% back in 1996 when Bob Dole won the caucus. Donald Trump won by 30 points, more than double that percentage. The media like to claim that the people who support Donald Trump are white, Christian, idiots who are uneducated and racist. That's the demographic that they create, a fictional demographic. When in reality last night, Donald Trump, amongst college graduates, those with a 4-year degree or more, won 36% of the caucus vote to just 30% for Nikki Haley and 27% for Ron DeSantis. So the so-called erudite Nikki Haley and the brilliant Ron DeSantis got fewer college graduates to vote for them than Donald Trump did. By the way, by comparison, 2016, the last real caucus in Iowa, Donald Trump received just 21% of the caucus goers who had university degrees. So 4 out of 5 didn't vote for Trump. This time, 1 out of 3, more than 1 out of 3 did. And that bodes very well for Trump. And it also refutes the narrative that the racist, race-hustling, discriminatory bigots on the mainstream and legacy media run with. Of those without a college education, which is half the population, voting population in the state of Iowa, 65% voted for Trump, 10% for Nikki Haley, and 16% for Ron DeSantis. Obviously, Nikki Haley has a severe problem with conservatives and people who have just a high school education, and that is a serious problem for her. Between the two groups, that is a majority of the population, and she's in trouble. Certainly a majority of the Republican caucus. Trump whipped his opponents across all demographics, including suburban women, minorities, wealthy, poor, education, no education. He destroyed his opponents, absolutely destroyed them, folks. This is a shellacking of the highest order. And that's a situation out of Iowa where Donald Trump takes a commanding position in the race for the Republican nomination for 2024. Despite the illegitimate prosecutions and persecution of Donald Trump, he is on the front foot once again. And what the news run with today, instead of celebrating his victory and talking about the historic occasion from a political science or historical perspective, they're focused on the bogus judgment against him for a woman who made a claim against him with no evidence 3 decades later in which she was awarded judgment. That's what they're talking about today. South Africa's African National Congress has decided that it's going to stick its nose into the national security of the United States, interfering in Guantanamo Bay. Guantanamo Bay is a piece of land that was leased to the United States for the sum of $4,000 back in 1903 in recognition and gratitude for the United States helping Cuba gaining its independence from Spain in the Spanish-American War of 1898. The United States agreed to pay $3,000 or $4,000 per year for use of the base so that the United States Navy could protect Cuba and the Caribbean basin. That agreement has existed since 1903. The United States has paid every year that sum. Unfortunately, since the communists illegitimately overthrew the Batista government in 1959, murdering thousands of Cubans under Fidel Castro, Castro has refused to accept the money, and his subsequent governments refused to accept the money, and the checks sit uncashed, and they're there. Cuba calls the possession of Guantanamo Bay an occupation. It's not an occupation, it's a mutual agreement. Unfortunately, the agreement says that both parties must mutually agree to end it. So until the United States says they don't want Guantanamo Bay anymore, it is U.S. soil, and we're obliged to pay $4,000 a year, which we do dutifully, and Cuba refused to accept the money. South Africa now, distracting itself, the ANC, from its failures in electricity, governance, murders, farm murders, rapes, assaults, cash in transit, heist, collapsing infrastructure, racist legislation. Distracting from that, it seeks to make itself a player on the world stage, when in fact it's just acting as a willful supplicant of the Chinese communist and the Russian fascist totalitarian dictator. Moscow and Beijing are directing the ANC, and the ANC is acting like a good little child and doing what it's told to do to distract the world. Meanwhile, we are on the precipice of global conflict. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't like to be an alarmist. As a retired full colonel from the military with multiple combat tours and experience around the globe, having dealt with these issues at the tactical, the operational, and strategic level, I can tell you that I am becoming gravely concerned about what is happening around the world. Unbelievable. It seems like uncoordinated activities that are taking place. First, we have the events of 2020, which installed Joe Biden as president. Then we have Myanmar's military overthrowing its government on the 1st of February 2021. No response from the Biden regime. No action taken by them. They go on a genocidal campaign against the Rohingya and other ethnic minorities with virtually no word from the world. Then we have Putin moving 70,000 troops to the border of Ukraine in the summer of 2021. Biden said nothing. allowed it to happen, no action taken. Then we have Biden callously and dishonestly withdrawing from Afghanistan, causing a complete security collapse in the region. And the list goes on and on and on. Then we have Putin invading Ukraine and Biden fueling a proxy war there instead of trying to negotiate a peace. On top of that, we have Hamas launching a war against Israel on October 7th. Then in Yemen, the Houthi launching a war against global shipping in the Red Sea. Now Iran is seizing ships in the Arabian Gulf, seizing ships in the Red Sea, attacking Iraq. And North Korea has ceased communications and halted all efforts to discuss things with South Africa. And many analysts say North Korea is on the verge of launching a war on the Korean Peninsula. This is absolutely bat crap crazy, ladies and gentlemen. Bat crap crazy. North Korea, Myanmar, Yemen, Israel, Ukraine, and an invasion of the southern border, weakening our national security and societal integrity here in the United States, all facilitated and precipitated by an illegitimate, corrupt regime sitting in Washington, D.C. Unbelievable, folks. This is a regime that makes itself illegitimate with its actions every single day. Cutting razor wire, helping criminal aliens invade our border. If I show up at the Philadelphia airport and refuse to show my passport to a Customs and Border Patrol agent, I will be arrested or deported, even though I'm an American. They will not let me in the country without showing my identification. Yet the Border Patrol patrols the border with Texas and Mexico and Arizona and facilitates the invasion of this country by cutting wire and helping criminal alien invaders into our country, and then putting them on planes and flying them around and dumping them in our communities, turning the entire country into a border state. This is unbelievable. It's unacceptable. It's atrocious. It is the death of civilization. That is what is going on here. The murder of civilization by leftist politicians the world over. It's unbelievable. Just today, I see news reports like NBC basically calling for censorship on this platform because they don't like what people say about climate change. And they're erroneously making false claims about what people are saying on YouTube and then attacking YouTube, saying its algorithms aren't sophisticated enough to punish people for stepping out of line with scientific information. Very dangerous world indeed, folks. And I didn't mention Taiwan because China's been provoking a conflict there. I should have done that as well. Let me say hello to everybody in the chat who's here, then get to the news stories. My apologies for starting late today, but I had some responsibilities I had to tend to, which of course delayed me from getting this broadcast started. Not the least of which is the snow issue out there. I'm going to have to go out and shovel snow when this broadcast is over. Trevor Bush is here. Welcome, Trevor. Dylan Kumbrick, Monray Siebritz. Paulie is in. Allison Johnson, Rod Lofeld from Nellsport. Teresa, Nick Muller. Who else we got? Erica's here, one of our moderators extraordinaire. Marilyn Brokenshaw. Hey, Marilyn, how are things? Radine Salve. Wolf K is here. The Sloth Puppy's back. Good to see you again. Rennie Funt. Fleshin is in from the 15-minute city of Oxford, another place suppressed and under the pressure and the heavy fascist boot of totalitarians. Bebop Williams is back. Erica says Trump can expect more legal and other tax. Oh, they're very angry. They're very angry. Janet Liddy's in from South Carolina, the Palmetto State. Welcome, Janet. And not next up, but very soon on the calendar for a primary. Matt Canali says, got some South Africa Cricket League on now. Okay. Cape Town looking very nice and warm. It is warm. It is summertime there. One thing that, that goes in Afrikaans there, so I'm not going to read that. One thing the cancer don't realize, as ye sam met die goed honde, I don't know what PP means, mot ye jou ben Wog Con Oplik. Wow, I butchered that, I'm sure. All right, Alan Coates is here. Brian says Trump knew and he set them up. Trump is MAGA. He is MAGA, says Brian Lawrence. Backwoods Law, welcome to you. Good to see you there again. Dan Hook is here. Welcome to you. And who else we got here? I'm feeling that DeSantis is also Rhino. Yes, I think he is too. Feels more coordinated to me, just my gut. No. Backwoods Law, I thought it was just random, but there's beginning to be a very clear pattern here of these efforts to spark conflicts all over the world almost simultaneously. Initially, my analysis was this was a consequence of Joe Biden's weak, callow foreign policy and his lies to the planet. But he's basically giving carte blanche and green light to any leftist fascist that wants to start trouble to do it. Look at all the coups we've had in Africa since he's been in charge. Elections have consequences. I think people are starting to understand it. Well, it's about time to understand it. Look at the nonsense we had to deal with Obama, and now we're dealing with this clown. Carlos Mango is here. Welcome. Graham is back. Welcome again. Leilu, hello to you. And plus, I guess South Africa couldn't launch a war if it wanted to unless there was a Russian KFC. Oh, Charles. Yeah, well, there's a three-piece Streetwise on sale today. Now, they're actually going to talk about KFC on this broadcast today, so hang around. You're going to hear KFC discussed here in just a moment. Also, my profound thanks to those who watched my previous two videos. The last two have done pretty well of late, So those two videos, of course, are my video on South Africa, Gaza, Israel, and the ICJ, obscurant for the ANC's pervasive failures. That one now has, I believe, 7,000 views. Let me see if it's gone over 7,000. It is, no, we're 8 shy of 7,000. So it'd be nice if we get over 7,000. Then the one I did last night about the ANC calling for the end of the occupation of Guantanamo Bay, that one is at over 1,100. It says I lost a subscriber. I love YouTube. How do you lose a subscriber in a video like that? Anyway, also I did a live stream about Israel. Excuse me. About South Africa, Israel, and the ICJ the other night on the 13th of January now, so 3 days ago. That one got 2,200 views for a live stream. That was very encouraging. Thank you for that. A long way from the salad days that we once had on YouTube. But anyway, so yeah, that's where we're at. Thank you all for that. My last 4 prepared videos have all gone over 1,000 views. That hasn't happened in a while, since I think November or since October. So all have gone over 1,000. One nearly 7,000, another at over 2,300. So thank you for that, folks. I do appreciate it. I do appreciate the support. Please spread the word. Let people know about the content. Well, let's get to the news more specifically, rather than me just going on about the headlines. Remember the Facebook Marketplace murders? Or not murders, but, well, there was one murder. The Facebook Marketplace crimes, robberies are taking place in Winterveld in Gauteng province. Well, another report of a Facebook Marketplace in which someone was shot 3 times. And this is not in Winterveld. This is in another location, Johannesburg. This is quite frightening, folks. People need to be aware of this. The South African Police Service, the government authorities in Gauteng, in Johannesburg Metro, in the Tshwane Metro have failed to warn consumers about this. God kept me alive. Man survives being shot 3 times by Facebook Marketplace robbers. A Johannesburg man who was left bloodied and wounded after being shot 3 times by a gang of Facebook Marketplace scammers bravely fought his way to safety while praying to God to save his life. David Bradley was lured into a trap on November 16th, long after I began reporting on this story, folks. November 16th, long after I began reporting on it. You see, the shadow banning of YouTube by YouTube suppresses the news that people need to know about and could cost people their lives. Thousands of people became aware of the Facebook Marketplace robberies and scams because of my reporting on it. But think of the thousands of South Africans who never saw that news. It was suppressed by YouTube. And this gentleman was shot 3 times in November and nearly died as a consequence of the suppression of news. That is the impact of suppressing the news. That's what happens when you silence voices. Bradley, who plays various musical instruments, said piano was advertised for 60,000 Rand, but the retail value was over 200,000. He said, when I messaged, it seemed legitimate. I mean, the face of the person was there with a kid in the background. I didn't go to Facebook Marketplace to find any credibility. You know, on Facebook, it will say this person joined. I didn't actually look at it, which I should have. On his way to the initial address shared by the alleged seller, he was sent a pin to a different location. Okay. Yep. And then he got it. Bradley's attack is similar to a string of incidents where people were lured to Winterveld on the outskirts of Pretoria. In November, Robbie Seeger and his fiancée, Reni Paddock, were threatened with death after going to Winterveld on the promise of a bakkie for sale. And the list goes on and on. Here are all these other attacks. There is one very common scenario here. All of these victims are white. Now, that just may be happenstance or coincidence, but folks, the fact that the government is not warning people about this is beyond reprehensible. Why is this not something they're talking about? It's unshameful. The news that you need to hear is suppressed, and it can cost people their lives. For instance, when I reported on the insurrection in July of 2021, I covered that event live all day long, day after day, while the South African media ignored it initially. The South African government ignored it, and people needed answers. And I covered it live from here. Well, another embarrassment for state-owned parastatals in South Africa, Transnet. A vital coal line is closed after 2 trains collide near Richards Bay. Look at that. Look at all those train cars with coal on them. Cleanup operations are in place on the KZN North Coast after 2 trains collided on Sunday. The 2 coal freight trains collided at Elubana outside Richards Bay, resulting in disruption of vital economic export rail line to the northern KZN town. Transnet Freight Rail said there were no serious injuries from the collision. The staff who were involved were sent for medical observation. Recovery efforts are underway. Another example of the failure of state-owned enterprises. Businesses that run not for profit motive, but for privilege, access, and patronage of government officials. Truly shocking. Well, bad times ahead for Eskom, folks, based on industry and analysts who say that things are getting worse, not better, despite the electric slides minister's assertions to the opposite. All right, the latest generation data from South Africa shows a consistent decline in electricity and generation over time. And look at that chart. From January of 2008 until January of 2023, it's nothing but downhill. Now, there's a big dip in there in 2020, but that's COVID related. It's artificial. Look at that. Nothing but generation capacity being reduced. And here's a poll here, folks. Who will you vote for in the 2024 election? All right. I'm not going to tell you who I vote for. I'm going to pick a party here. And let me see. They're not all here. Oh, there they are. Okay, I'll vote for a party. Let's see the results. The results aren't showing up. Okay. Let me reload the page and see if I can't get the results to come up. That's disappointing. View results. Okay, now Business Tech, which obviously is a publication, doesn't cater to a wide spectrum of the public, but people in business and those who read the news. This here with, I don't know how many thousand votes here, but just under 2,000 votes, the DA wins 52%, Freedom Front Plus gets 8%, ANC 8%, Action SA 7%, EFF 4%, but that cannot be taken as a definitive poll. That is simply based on those who are viewers of this. So anyway, 3 people killed and an 11-year-old boy shot in taxi violence in Port St. John's. Jolene Mariah Maharaj reports in the IOL. Police on high alert in the Lusikisiki and Port St. John's areas of the Eastern Cape following ongoing taxi violence that's claimed 3 lives and left at least 6 others injured. 3 security officials from Taxi Association were fatally injured. 5 other people from Port St. John's sustained gunshot wounds. During the attack, an 11-year-old boy was hit by a stray bullet and taken to hospital for treatment. This has got to end. This insanity, this gangland violence needs to end in South Africa. Speaking of violence, a Golden Arrow bus is attacked and crashes into 3 homes in Cape Town. A Golden Arrow bus crashed into Cape Town homes after a driver attempted to evade an attack in the early hours this morning. Golden Arrow Bus Services spokesman Bronwyn Dyke Byers said the incident took place in Delft at around 3:35 in the morning. A bus transporting Golden Arrow employees was targeted by unknown gunmen. It's not clear what the motive was, but a shot was fired, causing our driver to momentarily lose control of the bus. It collided with boundary walls of 3 houses. This is insane. Who is out shooting at buses at 3:30 in the morning? What is going on in South Africa? A Democratic Alliance member, bumhurt that he didn't get a leadership position, leaves the party, and the press, not Daily Maverick, but News 24, chooses to paint it as more black folks leaving the DA. When in fact, it's just another bumhurt politician who can't get power that he craves, and so he goes to Rise Mzansi. Ramulifo ditches the DA, citing critical party inconsistencies, and sets sail with Rise Mzansi. Democratic Alliance member of provincial legislature Kume Ramulifo has quit the DA, stating reasons ranging from his dissatisfaction with the official opposition's provincial and national election strategy to their stance on Israel and Palestine and the lack of internal democracy. The latest member of the DA who has ditched the party is Gauteng MPL Kume Ramulifo, who will be joining the recently formed Rise Mzansi. Now, that's exactly what we need. More political parties in South Africa. It's just ridiculous, folks. It needs to stop this nonsense. I did promise you news about KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, the Colonel's original recipe. I did promise you that, and it is time. It is time. It is time. KFC takes a gamble with the launch of a new coffee. Offers free tall cappuccinos for a day just to entice people to come in. South Africa is a country steeped in rich coffee culture, yet you may not consider a chicken restaurant as an option for great coffee. Yes? KFC, on the other hand, is convinced that their new coffee is a sure bet they're going to give it away free. To launch the new KFC coffee, the restaurant's boldly challenging consumers to bring in their empty coffee cup from their regular go-to coffee spot, and they'll upgrade them with a free tall cappuccino. We know that the rumor mill suggested we were changing our recipe, and we're excited to confirm that this is some truth in this, says Nick Duminy, marketing director for KFC South Africa. So there you go, folks. Come on in and get yourself the terms, conditions, selected stores only, so not everywhere. Breakfast from 6 to 10:30, coffee all day. There you go, on January 19th. Okay? So free coffee refills take place, just the 3 locations. Johannesburg on Grayston Drive, Durban, KFC Gateway, and Cape Town at KFC Spin Street. That's the only 3 places. Why? Why announce it if it's some big deal if you're only going to do it at 3 locations in a country of 63 million people? That's disappointing. KFC, that's very disappointing. Why are you offering free coffee at just 3 locations? Do it everywhere. Do it everywhere. That's disappointing. Well, we saw yesterday that AfriForum's Director of Public Relations, the conscious clerical Ernst van Zyl, is calling on the South African government to scrap the television fees because 87% of fees are never paid. They're evaded by customers. So now UTA is also saying these fees are ridiculous and must be gone. The organization Undoing Tax Abuse says South Africa's TV license system has already failed, and waiting years to change SABC's funding model could create huge financial problems for the public broadcaster. SABC is owed 44 billion rand on TV license fees, a massive financial hole that successive ministers have failed to address. This year, the SABC reported a monetary loss of 1.13 billion rand. So UTA also wants that gone. The African National Congress, as I mentioned earlier, is ramping up its rhetoric, attacking the United States, and this is not a position for success. This is a foolish move by the ANC seeking to divert attention from home, not appreciating the consequences of their actions. When jobs are lost in Port Elizabeth, at the VW plant, at the BMW plant, when South Africa is unable to ship its wine for a low price to the States, when its produce is affected by this, when its other products are harmed because of its stupidity, when it's kicked out of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, they'll come back and respect this. Well, they'll regret it, I should say. ANC ramps up advocacy on international issues, calls on U.S. to end occupation of Guantanamo Bay. The ANC has continued its efforts to focus on international crises, ignoring events at home, as it called on the United States to immediately end its occupation of Guantanamo Bay. The calls made at the 7th Africa-Cuba Solidarity Conference in White River, Mpumalanga, come after the ANC also used its 112th anniversary celebrations to demonstrate its support for Palestine, calling for an immediate ceasefire. Isn't it ironic that Cuba, which is occupied by colonizers, Spanish, who imprisoned and enslaved the indigenous population of the island of Hispaniola and run it to this day, colonizers who are white, isn't it ironic that they are the friends of the commie, race-hustling ANC? Yeah, that's just comical. So why is South Africa going to the International Court of Justice? Lots of op-ed pieces coming out on that today. I published mine on my Substack account. For those who are not familiar with that Substack account, let me get you that link real quick, and you can read my article, or you can also watch the video where I actually discuss it. So let me get to profile. Let me find my platform. Here we go. So there we go. This is the Substack link. If you want to check it out, the article, and check out any other articles I've written there, you're welcome to do that. Paste. So there it is. That's Substack. You can subscribe for free. I'm not charging anybody for my content at the moment. It's still free because I don't do a lot of content on there. So that is my Substack account, and the article's on there. Excuse me. But I have said exactly what is going on with the ANC there. So here are some op-ed pieces from around the world. This in Al Jazeera. Altruism, opportunism, or both? What pushed South Africa to the International Court of Justice over Gaza? Pretoria's intent is under scrutiny as it presents an all-important case against Israel's war in Gaza at the ICJ. I will correct Al Jazeera. It's not Israel's war in Gaza. It's Hamas's war against Israel. Yep. Last week, South Africa took the unprecedented step of asking the International Court of Justice in The Hague to rule on whether the continuing violence and humanitarian tragedy unfolding in Gaza amounts to genocide, which it does not. Yep, South Africa's move against Israel has confounded many within and outside both countries, including those who have applauded Pretoria. Yep, but for years, South Africa has been unequivocal in its support for Palestinians, despite backlash from the white majority Democratic Alliance. Now, once again, that's a racist lie by Al Jazeera. The Democratic Alliance is not a white majority party. It's a colored majority party, and it's time for people to stop lying about that. Trevor Bush wants to know if the DA would appeal to more black voters to have black voters as leaders. No, they've had a black leader, but he was just ANC light. Musi Maimane led the DA to disaster in the 2019 elections. They had a black leader. And then he left and cried racism when he ran the party. This appearing in the Washington Post by Max Boot. South Africa's false charges of Israeli genocide carry a heavy price, says Max Boot, the leftist commentator. As Israel's war against Hamas passed the 100-day mark, Israelis struggle to understand how their country could be accused of carrying out genocide in a war they did not start. If any party of the conflict is guilty of attempted genocide, it is Hamas. It's a terrorist organization which is explicitly dedicated to the destruction of the Jewish state, has carried out war crimes, including the murder of Israeli citizens, the kidnapping of more than 200 Israelis, including old people and young children, and the widespread use of rape and sexual violence against Israeli girls and women. Yet last week it was Israel, not Hamas, that found itself in the dock of the International Court of Justice in The Hague. And that's exactly right. And this is why the ANC is nothing but hypocrites. Well, folks, if you're looking to put solar on your home in South Africa, what's it going to cost you? My Broadband gives us the figures. You can put solar, depending on your house, for a cost of between 167,000 Rand and 529,000 Rand. So as you can see, solar panels are out of the reach of most people. Most people cannot afford this luxury of solar panels, which they're being forced into by the failures of South Africa's ANC and Eskom. In neighboring Namibia, taking advantage of the international chaos and diplomatic nonsense taking place, President Hage Geingob, distracting from failures at home, attacks Germany for not condemning Israel. Namibia needs to shut up. Namibia denounces Germany's support for Israeli genocidal actions, according to IOL, Dominic Naidu. Namibia, haunted by the first genocide of the 20th century committed by Germany on its soil. Okay, that's once again, I'm sorry, Dominic Naidu, you are factually incorrect. Germany did not commit a genocide in Namibia. The German Empire committed a genocide. If you're going to say that, then you have to say that the Zulu, or you say that South Africa committed genocide against black Africans, because the formation of the Zulu Empire was the equivalent of a genocide against other groups by pushing them into extinction and destroying their cultural identity. You have to say that South Africa has already committed genocide against its own people if you're going to say that. But the Zulu Empire is not the Republic of South Africa. The Bundesrepublik Deutschland, formed in 1949, is not Germany. The German Empire, under a Kaiser, committed those events. So stop your nonsense. This willful lying about history is disgusting. Holding people responsible for the events that occurred over a century ago is ludicrous. In a poignant statement shared on the official Namibian Facebook page, President Geingob expressed profound concern over Germany's refusal to acknowledge the alleged genocidal acts in Gaza brought before the ICJ. So who cares? He raised concerns over Germany's apparent dismissal of the violent deaths. Germany didn't dismiss the violent deaths of 23,000 Palestinians. Germany dismissed the bogus genocide allegations. Botswana's president, Mokwetsi Eric Masisi, the successor to Ian Khama, is confident he will win. And I suspect he will, but that's unfortunate. With elections this year in Botswana. There's Masisi there. He registered to vote for the general elections on January 15th. The president of Botswana, Mokwetsi Eric Masisi, said Monday that he's prepared to campaign and believes that he will be reelected president of Botswana. He made the remarks at a press conference after he and his wife registered to vote for the general elections. He emphasized that everyone taking part in the upcoming general elections must obey the law and accept the outcome when it comes, adding that if there's any suspicion that something goes wrong, there are legal procedures in place to allow people to dispute the election. The general elections are in 2024, but the month and date have yet to be set by Botswana's government. So that is what's coming up here, folks, in Botswana this year. Botswana, South Africa, the United States all have elections this year. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Anyway, so moving on from there. Cyclone Belai have devastating impacts on the island nation of Mauritius. You can see here cars submerged after the cyclone hit both Mauritius and Reunion. Authorities in Mauritius are assessing damage after Cyclone Belai brought torrential rain and flooding to the Indian island nation. At least one person has died in Mauritius and another on Reunion. Man, Mauritius Meteorological Services said a safety bulletin was now enforced as the storm was moving away from Mauritius a few hours after it was announced it was raising alert to level 4. And there you can see the path of the storm, the cone of it, and where it's expected to go. As of 10 o'clock this morning, It was past Reunion and southwest of Mauritius, and it will continue on out into the east into the Indian Ocean. Cyclone Bilal, causing heavy damage in Mauritius and on Reunion, the French possession. Comoros held presidential elections on the 14th, just 2 days ago, and people say there were irregularities. Voting took place in Comoros on Sunday, an election widely expected to hand a fourth 5-year term to President Azali Assoumani, while his 5 opponents said the vote was tainted by accusations of pre-marked ballots in favor of the incumbent. Polls opened across the Indian Ocean archipelago at 8 a.m. for the 338,940 registered voters. Now, Comoros has experienced 20 coups or attempted coups since it got independence from France in 1975. It is a major source of irregular migration to the nearby French island of Mayotte, and also a destination where the South African National Defense Force, under a SADC umbrella, has deployed troops on a few occasions in the recent past. The skies are not friendly between Tanzania and Kenya over a dispute about not allowing a Tanzanian airline to use Kenyan airports, and this row continues. Tanzania and Kenya seek peace after flight bans fight. Yeah, excuse me, I couldn't say that. The Foreign Affairs Ministry of Tanzania and Kenya have agreed to solve an impasse between the two countries' aviation companies over the next 3 days. This is after Tanzania declared it would stop Kenyan Airways from flying between Nairobi and Dar es Salaam beginning on January 22nd. It was in direct response to Kenya declining requests by Tanzania to operate cargo flights between Nairobi and third countries. And this row will probably be settled, but not good stuff. In Nigeria and West Africa, Shell, the Dutch-British corporation, is abandoning the oil industry that it pioneered in Nigeria. After over a century, nearly a century in Nigeria, Shell is leaving. Shell is set to conclude nearly a century of operations in Nigeria onshore oil and gas after agreeing to sell its subsidiary to a consortium of mostly local companies for up to $2.4 billion. The British-Dutch energy giant pioneered Nigeria's oil and gas business back in the 1930s, and it has struggled for years with hundreds of onshore oil spills as a result of bunkering, sabotage, and operational issues that have led to costly repairs and high-profile lawsuits. So they're exiting the market. That is not a shocking development given the difficulties of operating in Nigeria with criminals and rogues running around and affecting the profitability, not to mention frivolous lawsuits from the government of Nigeria all the time. Turning our attention to North Africa, Tunisians are being accused of deportation of mass expulsion of migrants from sub-Saharan Africa. Migration activists are sounding the alarm this week after mass expulsions and arbitrary arrests in Tunisia, where authorities are seeing more migrants arrive for attempted Mediterranean crossings from the North African nation to Europe. The Tunisian Forum for Economic and Social Rights accused the government of waging a campaign of repression against migrants at the expense of humanitarian concerns. The non-government organization said the migrants in Sfax, 117 miles from the Italian island of Lampedusa, regularly experience arbitrary arrest and violence. Many have their property destroyed. Well, what they fail to mention is that these people are criminal alien invaders who have no business being there. They should not be mistreated. They should simply be deported back to where they came from. And here's the story of one of these gentlemen with a very sad story, which we can all empathize with, but it doesn't excuse his conduct. Nothing for me in Cameroon, waiting in Tunisia with one eye in Europe. Al Jazeera seeks to pull at your heartstrings. It's tugging. Having lost everything and everyone precious to him, Joseph tries to hold things together, waiting to leave Africa. Joseph Afumbom is a big man who has faced unimaginable tragedy. The conflict in Cameroon between Anglophone separatists and the government killed the 27-year-old's mother, father, and siblings. It also took his home in Bambenda in the country's northwest. I was there when the war started. The war took everyone. It was 3 years ago. My brothers and sisters are all gone. With his home and family destroyed, no jobs available, he left. He felt he had no option but to gather his fiancée Esther and their 3-year-old daughter and travel 5,000 kilometers overland to the Mediterranean coast. They arrived in Algeria, where they considered crossing into Tunisia and from there to Europe. However, both Joseph's fiancée and daughter died in Almenia. They're all gone because of the cold. That was last month. I'm just trying to act normal, you know. I'm smoking, I'm walking, I'm whiling away my thinking, trying to act like a normal person, but I'm not. He paused, allowing his thoughts to drift back. We had been together for years. My daughter was 3. I called her Little Joy. Eventually, Joseph crossed into Tunisia, making his way to the coastal city of Sfax before traveling by shared taxis to Tunis. And he didn't eat for 2 days. There's nothing left for me in Cameroon. I will continue to Europe if I have the opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, Why didn't Joseph travel to Lagos? Why didn't Joseph travel to Yaoundé? Why didn't Joseph travel to Niamey? Why didn't Joseph travel to N'Djamena? Why didn't Joseph travel to Accra? Why does Joseph have to go thousands of miles to Europe? Why? The tragedy of his life is horrific, but his result, his answer is not acceptable. Somalia and the Palestinian delegation at the non-aligned summit in Uganda are pushing the agenda. The Summit of Non-Aligned Movement got underway this week in Uganda's capital, Kampala, where delegations from Somalia and the Palestinian people are lobbying members for support. While the Palestinians are calling on members to find a way to end the conflict in Gaza, Somalia says it needs support to maintain its territorial integrity. 93 out of 120 non-aligned nations are represented for the 19th Summit of the movement. Arab nations made it clear that Gaza must be the focus of the meeting. Well, there you go. The non-aligned movement, and who even knew it was taking place? Who even knew? Africa's largest petroleum refinery begins production in Nigeria. The Dangote refinery in Nigeria has launched operations. The Dangote petroleum refinery has commenced production of diesel and aviation fuel. It can load 2,900 trucks a day at its truck loading gantry. The products of the refinery will conform to Euro 5 specifications. Wow, a massive facility. It cost $20 billion. That was original estimate was $12 to $14 billion, and there were years of delays. But the refinery has a capacity of 650,000 barrels per day. It will meet 100% of Nigeria's demand for all refined petroleum products and will also have a surplus of each of the products for export. Really good news for Nigeria. That will bring hard currency in and stop flowing hard currency out of the country. Iran launches missile attack against Iraq and Syria and claims to destroy Israeli spy base. This is a ludicrous claim. Iran's Revolutionary Guards launched ballistic missiles at what it said was a spy base for Israel's intelligence agency Mossad in northern Iraq and anti-Iran terror groups in Syria in the latest escalation of hostilities that further risk spiraling to a wider regional conflict. The strikes were condemned by the United States as reckless and imprecise. Iranian forces said the midnight missile strike in Iraq destroyed one of the main espionage headquarters of Israel in Erbil, which is capital of the semi-autonomous Kurdistan region. In response, what they said were Israeli attacks that killed Iranian Revolutionary Guard commanders and members of the Iranian Resistance Front. At least 4 civilians were killed and 6 others injured in the attack. This is insane. Iran is a rogue state out of control. The axis of evil that George Bush once talked about after 9/11. As a consequence, Iraq has recalled its ambassador and summons Iran's charge d'affaires over strikes in Erbil. Iraq recalled its ambassador from Tehran for consultations and summoned Iran's charge d'affaires in Baghdad on Tuesday to protest Iranian strikes that killed several civilians. The Iranian attack was a blatant violation of Iraq's sovereignty and strongly contradicts the principles of good neighborliness and international law and threatens the security of the region, the ministry said. Indeed it does. Indeed it does. Well, speaking of chaos, Houthi ballistic missiles strike U.S.-owned and operated cargo ship, according to Central Command. A Houthi anti-ship ballistic missile struck U.S.-owned and operated cargo ship on Monday. The attack against the Gibraltar Eagle appears to be the first time the Houthis have successfully struck a U.S.-owned or operated ship, raising the stakes in the Red Sea. It comes just days after the U.S.-led coalition carried out strikes against the Iranian-backed rebel group, and it definitively shows that the strikes were unsuccessful at crippling the Houthis' ability to attack global shipping. U.S. forces recovered Iranian warheads in the mission where Navy SEALs are missing. U.S. military said the armed shipment intercepted off the coast of Somalia was destined for militants in Yemen and blamed the attacks in the Red Sea. American military personnel recovered Iranian-made missile warheads and related components during a shipboarding mission near Somalia that disrupted the weapons resupply of militants in Yemen but left 2 elite Navy SEALs lost at sea. A massive search and rescue operation is ongoing, but they're unlikely to find them at this point, folks. The Washington Post and other media previously reported Thursday night's nighttime operation backed by helicopters and drones took place in rough seas when one of the SEALs slipped from a ladder while attempting to climb aboard the dhow. The second, having witnessed a comrade fall in the water, dove in to help. Both were swept away by powerful swells, and neither has been publicly identified. Here are the photograph of the Iranian weapons that are being shipped, the war being fueled by Iran. Gorliz Gaharaman, the New Zealand Member of Parliament, resigns after shoplifting allegations. A New Zealand member of parliament resigned following multiple allegations of shoplifting, which police are investigating. Golriz Gaharaman of the Green Party is alleged to have stolen 3 times from 2 clothing stores, one in Auckland and the other in Wellington. The former UN human rights lawyer made history in 2017 as the first refugee in the country's government. She once held her party's justice portfolio. Isn't that ironic? A shoplifter who held the justice portfolio. Yeah, a human rights attorney who steals from others. Work-related stress made her behave completely out of character, she said. Really? So, I'm under a lot of stress. I think I'll go steal a brand new Ford F-150 pickup truck. That'll make me feel better. Shut up. I have let down a lot of people. I'm very sorry. She fled Iran as a child with her family, are all granted political asylum in New Zealand. Her resignation on Tuesday comes after CCTV footage emerged showing her taking a designer handbag from an Auckland boutique. Oh, well, it wasn't just, something you needed. It was a designer handbag. The 42-year-old who has not been charged with any crime, why not? Why not? Why not? It's not a behavior I can explain because it's not rational anyway. And after a medical evaluation, I understand I'm not well. Really? Isn't it funny how the left always has mental problems when they commit crimes or, they didn't mean to diddle little children. They just didn't feel well. They didn't mean to shoot their neighbors, but they were just having a bad day. They need psychological help. Give me a break. Rian van Rooyen, welcome to you. North Korea halts radio communications and curbs exchanges with the South in what many analysts are now predicting is a move to launch a war on the Korean Peninsula. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un called for a decisive policy change in relations with the South back in December. North Korea is stepping up pressure on Seoul in recent weeks, declaring it the principal enemy, saying the North will never reunite with the South and vowing to enhance its ability to deliver a nuclear strike on U.S. and America's allies in the Pacific. Radio Pyongyang, known as a number station, in the past broadcasts mysterious coded numbers presumed to be targeting Pyongyang spies operating in South Korea. Its website is also down on Saturday. Wow. This is insane. This is insane. This is insane. The United States decries Nauru, the sad little island in the Pacific, for changing its policy and recognizing the Communist Chinese in Beijing rather than Taiwan, and warns that China will not follow through on its promises. Well, that's pretty much given. Davos. This is a frightening prospect here, folks. Jamie Dimon, is he betraying the world? Is he betraying us, rational people? Jamie Dimon meets with the grifter-in-chief, Volodymyr Zelensky, in Davos. Wow. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Where's the story? Yeah, this is all about it, but Jamie Dimon's not listed there. My goodness. Jamie Dimon meets with the grifter, Volodymyr Zelensky. What is Volodymyr Zelensky doing in Davos? It's an economic forum. He should be back in Ukraine defending his nation, plotting strategy. But instead, he's trying to find a way to grift more money at Davos. The Iowa caucus results, ladies and gentlemen, and here it is. Look at that map. That map is red. Donald Trump red. That's right. Let me boost that up a little bit so you can see a little better there. There we go. All right, now you can see a little bit better here. So the Iowa caucus results. Donald Trump didn't just beat his opponents, he spanked his opponents with a 30-point win, 51-21 over his closest competitor, Ron DeSantis, taking 20 of the 40 delegates available, with DeSantis getting 9 and Nikki Haley a distant third with 8. But look at that map. Every single county fell to Donald Trump. Every single county in the state, with the exception of Johnson County, where Democrats subverted the electoral process and voted for Nikki Haley, where she won by a single vote. But less than 5% of the votes are still out there, so it could still change. I don't know what we're waiting for, why we haven't counted those votes, but 95% have been reported. It means 5% of the votes are out there, so Trump could come back and win that. But Trump won 98 of 99 counties, only Johnson. Even in the counties that expect to do poorly, where Iowa State University is, he won there over Haley, 34-30%. In Des Moines, where Polk County is, he won 38-26 over Nikki Haley, and 38-27 over Ron DeSantis. And over here in Dallas County, he won 39-27. All counties was expected to do very poorly. Donald Trump ran away with this election. It is Donald Trump's field. It's Trump's race to lose. And he wins decisively in Iowa. As a consequence of last night's disappointing result, Vivek Ramaswamy, the entrepreneur, has withdrawn from the race. He threatened to disrupt primaries with relentless engagement in culture wars, according to The Guardian, who hates the truth. Vivek Ramaswamy, the youthful entrepreneur who briefly threatened to disrupt the Republican primaries, has suspended his campaign for president. As of this moment, we're going to suspend this presidential campaign. There's no path for me to be the next president, absent things that we don't want to see happen in this country. Virtually unknown before he announced his run for president, Ramaswamy rose to third in national polling over the summer amid a slew of appearances on cable television. His popularity included the early voting states Iowa and New Hampshire declined since then as Trump maintained his convincing lead. But he's out. He was withdrawn from the race. Vivek Ramaswamy was an interesting character in the race, but he's out. U.S. Defense Secretary General Lloyd Austin is released from the hospital after 2 weeks from his secretive cancer admission. Kept the White House in the dark about his hospitalization for several days, a major breach of protocol at the highest national security levels. On the advice of his doctors, will continue to recuperate and perform his duties from home before returning full-time to the Pentagon. He said he's grateful for the excellent care received free of charge at the Walter Reed National Medical Center and wants to thank the outstanding doctors and nursing staff for their professionalism and superb support. Yeah, I don't get treated at the Walter Reed Medical Center. I'm a retired veteran, but he does. He does. Ketanji Brown Jackson, the Supreme Court justice who can't identify what a woman is. Apparently, she's unfamiliar with biology and science. She must have missed that day in class back in high school when we were taught that an X and an X chromosome equal a lady and an X and a Y equal a dude. She missed that class and was unable to answer that question in her confirmation hearings in a farcical confirmation of a woman who ascended to the highest levels of jurisprudence based solely on her genitalia and her skin pigmentation. Because that's what Joe Biden said. I'm picking a black woman. Yep. And she's there. Well, she's facing ethics complaint from conservative group under judicial review. An ethics complaint against Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson related to her financial disclosures is under review by the Committee on Financial Disclosures in the Judicial Conference. Yep. She failed to disclose money that her husband made that is required to be disclosed by federal judges. Well, on YouTube, this is NBC News, and this is the nonsense where they're trying to censor voices they don't like. NBC News says, on YouTube, climate denialism takes a turn. A study of more than 12,000 videos found that efforts to discredit climate movement have moved on from whether climate change is real to focus on skepticism of solutions activists and scientists. Now, here is the problem with this. First off, they're wrong. They're late to the party. Those who made arguments against the climate religion, not climate change, but the climate religion, have long pointed out the lies and the misrepresentations. For instance, Germany's emissions are declining rapidly. The United States has declined its emissions by over 60% in the last 20 years. Yet, the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere continues to rise. Why? Because it doesn't matter how much we reduce it when China and India put more and more and more and more in the atmosphere. And pointing that out isn't a change of tack. It's simply stating the facts, which have always been stated. I predicted that China and India, with their economic growth, would produce multitudes of carbon more than they were producing 20 years ago. And I said it 20 years ago. And I said it 10 years ago. And I said it 5 years ago. And I say it today. It's not a change, and it's also not a lie. This is an effort to censor opinions that these zealots don't like. The voices that deny change have settled on a new refrain. Instead of rejecting the fact the earth is warming, they're now focusing on skepticism on solutions, as well as scientists and activists, and altogether the idea that climate change will cause harm. Yeah, this is ridiculous. Scientists who study Earth systems have agreed for decades that human burning of fossil fuel creates an imbalance in heat trapping gases in the atmosphere. Well, scientists. Which scientists? How many scientists? What percentage of scientists? It's nonsense. Anyway. This is an effort to silence people. John Cook, a senior research fellow at Melbourne Centre for Behaviour Change, University of Melbourne, Australia, is the one who wrote this article. Well, it's an effort to silence critics. And the fascists in Australia, the fascists in DC, the fascists in Berlin, Paris, London, Pretoria, all want to silence critics who point out their shortcomings and their lies to humans around the planet. Simple as that. Folks, be sure to hit that like button. Costs you nothing but a moment of your time. Would really appreciate that. I'm really struggling here this morning.
That was great.
With the chest congestion, it's difficult to talk and stay focused. I think I've done a pretty good job. I will pat myself on the back for that. Thank you for your support and for being here. I do appreciate it. Those are the news headlines for today, the 16th of January, 2024. Yeah, so the big news, of course, is Donald Trump steamrolling through Iowa. Every county except Johnson County, where he's at the moment losing by a single vote. A single vote. That's crazy. Common sense history has been skewed by Europeans to cause a division of African American black. What? I'm confused. I don't know, John, if you're making that statement or if you're saying that that's a lie. Europeans that cause a division of Africa and African American black. Okay, American blacks aren't from America, just like American whites aren't from America. They come from elsewhere. So I don't know what your point there is. Skewing history of Africa? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What history of Africa is being skewed? Please give me an example of history of Africa being skewed, John Legend Media or J Legend Media. What is skewed? Please tell me. That Africa was Christian, that Muslims are the latecomers, that Africa was settled by Europeans. It was in the north. Romans, Greeks, Phoenicians. Phoenicians are Semites, not European. So please tell me, Jay Legend, what your point is, because the way it's written, it's unclear. It seems like you're making a trolling statement, and then it seems like you're saying that the trolling statement is invalid. So we're a little confused by that. Anyway, so there you have it, folks. Let's talk about Africa. I'd love to talk about Africa. We'd love to do that. Love to talk about America, too. What are lies, John, or Jay Legend? What are the lies? Please tell me what the lies are. Again, I'm not going to be able to respond. George senses a rant coming. No, I'm not in a good mood for rant. I haven't been ranting. Not feeling well enough for that sort of thing. And this cough is not going away. And I haven't heard back from the clinic who took a chest x-ray last week. The steroids that I'm on are about to expire, so I don't know what to say. Anyway, but yeah, there are lots of lies out there, folks. Lots of lies. All right, so John, I've given you a chance. Now you're just toying around. Either make a statement of fact that you believe be true, or I'm just going to ignore your comments. As simple as that, okay? Okay? You got to make a statement. This is getting old with people who do this. Anyway, back to the comments here and videos. So it's interesting because YouTube tells me that I have had, yesterday it told me that I'd lost 20 subscribers over the past 28 days. Yet, over the past 2 days, I've had the highest number of subscribers on this channel I've ever had. So how could I have lost more subscribers than I've gained when I increased by 60 and went to the highest level? Right now, we're at 13,765 subscribers on the channel, which is the most I've had on this channel ever. Now, it pales in comparison to the original channel, which is still over 20,000 and is still out there. But anyway, YouTube, their numbers are just always suspect. So that's where we're at right now. Anyway, thanks to the people who've been watching my content the past few days. I do appreciate it. Thanks to you for watching the live here. I do appreciate that. Last night's video has gone over 1,000 now. And then the one from the day before is still not inching over 7,000. This has got to be out of date. Let me refresh this page and see if it's not true anymore. Come on. Yeah, it's over 7,000. It finally went over 7,000. There you go. So the one on the South African, the International Court of Justice, went over 7,000. Are Arabs Egyptians at the same time? Okay, John's asking a question. Well, the Arabs came out of the Arabian Peninsula. The people who lived there before were assimilated or wiped out, and they call themselves Arabs today. So culturally, linguistically, they're Arabic. So I'm not sure what question you mean. Cats VD, you are so informative. Sir, thank you for all you're doing. My hubby and I are watching for stuff. Well, thanks, Cats. Cats, where are you at? If you don't mind sharing, which part of the country? Northern Cape, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Northwest, Gauteng, Eastern Cape, Western Cape, KZN. Where are you at? Let us know. Anyway, so yeah, so over 7,000, over 1,000. So thanks for that, folks. I do appreciate that. And thank you, Cats. You're so informative. I try to be informative, but, it's hilarious because people attack you. People don't like the truth. They disagree. It's interesting this morning because I was contacted by somebody about something unrelated to this broadcast. And they wrote to me and asked me for feedback on something that someone said about a veteran service organization that I'm involved in. Someone's libeled me. And so I wrote back and gave an explanation. The person wrote back and was like, wow, I had no idea. It's interesting when people listen to the truth and evaluate it for themselves rather than gossip and innuendo, they learn a lot. It's really pretty cool. So the most comprehensive, widespread news I watch. Well, thank you for that, Ken Arnston. Ladies and gentlemen, there's Ken in the house. Ken is the first South African whom I had a meet and greet with in South Africa after I started my tours of South Africa in August of 2022. How cool is that? Ken was awesome. In fact, Ken, I wish that evening could have gone on forever, but that was quite a busy day for me. I had landed, went and showered, went out to dinner. The next day we did that. It was pretty crazy. RJ said, must be nice being the ANC, running around telling everyone how they should be going about their business, yet the ANC themselves. Exactly. You're exactly right, RJ. The ANC telling the United States that our national security doesn't matter because we're occupying Guantanamo Bay. It's factually incorrect. There may be a dispute between the communist government of Cuba and Washington about the lease for Guantanamo Bay, but it is legally sound. And it is a consequence of the United States getting Cuba free of the Spanish colonization yoke. Yep. So you think Iran helped the ANC with money for the election? In return, they had to take on Israel now. George, that's a very interesting thesis you have there. I wouldn't doubt it at all. I wouldn't doubt it at all. And of course, Europeans and Japanese facilitate that by buying oil from Iran. I think people should just stop buying oil from Iran altogether. Of course, it's hard to prove because oil is a fungible commodity, can easily be shuffled about on ships in different places. But yeah, I think that people should stop buying anything from Iran and let the country implode and let the people overthrow that government. Okay, J Legend Media says, are the Dutch in South Africa African or just colonizers? Well, J Legend, there are almost no Dutch in South Africa. The Netherlands embassy has a handful of Dutch who live there. There are a few thousand Dutch who've migrated to South Africa, but the Dutch aren't in South Africa. I don't know what you're talking about. They're not colonizers. They are living there under the laws and the Constitution promulgated by a majority black government in 1995. So I don't know what you're talking about. They're not colonizers. Oh, do you mean the Afrikaners that live in South Africa? Is that what you mean? Do you mean to insult the Afrikaners by calling them Dutch? They're not Dutch. The Afrikaners of today are an amalgamation of the following groups of people: of Dutch, German, French Huguenot, Khoi, San, and some Indonesian in many cases. Yeah. The majority of DNA amongst Afrikaners is not Dutch, but German. German origin. Most of the Afrikaners have more German DNA in them than Dutch or anything else. And almost all Afrikaners have a small percentage, up to 10% of DNA that is African. So your comment is just comical, J Legend, because the Afrikaners are African by DNA and by their residence in Africa. They were born in Africa. They've been there for nearly 400 years. Case closed, man. Case closed. So, insulting the Afrikaners by calling them Dutch is really just showing ignorance or willful neglect of history. So what else? What else we got here? We got, Fermulin Jean-Jacques says, Jacques from Pretoria, awesome live. Hey, love it. Thanks, Fermulin. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Thanks for subscribing. Graham says, did you hear Romans show the ANC was paid by Iran to take Israel? Oh, that's why that's coming up. I have no evidence of that. Where does Roman get that information? Is that an allegation or supposition on his part? It's a fair supposition, but I have no evidence. Makes sense that ANC suddenly has loads of money in Lady Pandora's recent assertion. Yeah, no, it does make all the sense in the world. If it's an assertion by them, that's fine. But they're going to find that they're not getting phone calls from ANC members of parliament anymore if they keep making those allegations without any evidence. ANC don't care about Guantanamo, simply attack on the allies of Israel. Correct, Grasshopper. That is correct. That is correct. Cleopatra was foolish enough to get involved in the Roman Civil War. Yeah, she did. She did. Are the Europeans in America natives or just colonizers? Well, everyone who lives in America their ancestors were colonizers. North America and South America were unpopulated by Homo sapiens 26,000 years ago. The first wave of Homo sapiens who arrived in the Americas crossed the Bering Strait around 23,000 years ago. They came in, they settled North America and parts of Central and even South America, and then they died off, apparently. And then the next wave came in around 10 to 13,000 years ago and stayed permanently. Those folks are the ancestors of the so-called First Nations and Indigenous or Native Americans. There's no such thing, but that's who their ancestors were. Those of European origin came here beginning in the 15th century, starting in the Caribbean Basin, in the island of Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, and places like that, the Spanish initially. And then others came, the French, the Portuguese, the Brits, all came to the region. They're not Europeans. I'm not European. And calling me a European is a racist slur, and you can stick it in your pipe and shove it where the sun don't shine, if you want to call it that. I am an American. I am an American by birth and by affectation and by desire. and by my commitment to the Constitution of the United States. I have been an American since my birth. My ancestors have been Americans since the year 1619. Not 1619, excuse me, 1621. 1621. I got confused with the 1619 project. 1621, over 4 centuries ago, is when my ancestors settled in Virginia and began the Wyatt line here in North America. We are Americans, not Europeans. That is just racist drivel or bigotry promoted by people who are willfully ignorant of the facts. The Nguni-speaking peoples of South Africa are also colonizers and not indigenous to South Africa. They did not arrive in the region until 1,400 years ago, crossing the Zambezi and Limpopo rivers, pushing aside the Khoi and San who lived in Zimbabwe and in the northern reaches of South Africa and KZN, marginalizing them, chasing them off into the Kalahari Desert or wiping them out or assimilating them. The Nguni-speaking peoples, a cattle-rearing people, created empires and kingdoms and created war after war after war as they colonized what is today South Africa, starting around 1,400 years ago. Europeans began to arrive for permanent settlement in the Western Cape over 350 years ago in what is now Cape Town. Yeah, so there's the facts. Simple man with 2 small businesses, but I think of America as an enemy. What? I think America is an enemy. No colonized South Africa. Technical. The blacks, historical, are also colonized. Yep. Spot on. My Afrikaans mom origin is mom is German and dad is Dutch. There you go, Rion. That's correct. Absolutely correct. Yep. Really? Only foreign ears? You're joking, right? Are you talking about Europeans? Those of European descent? Yeah, they came in 1652. Permanent settlement. There were folks came earlier. The Portuguese circumventing Africa stopped along the coasts, and the Strandlopers gave them a spanking, killed a couple Portuguese sailors one time. They had contact with people along the west coast of South Africa and along the southern coast, but they didn't set any permanent settlements up. It wasn't until the Dutch under Jan van Riebeck, a mixed race governor from Indonesia, came there and set up the Cape Town refitting station for a chance for ships to stop, recuperate, get some vitamin C and some victuals, and move on. Yep. So it wasn't until 1652. Seems the victim mentality is now contagious. It is a mental disease. It is. Roman's just speculating, but he may be very well correct. Yes, Graham, he may be very well correct. That's why I'm asking, did he state it unequivocally? No, it's a fair speculation. And I should do a video about what I talked about earlier. What I once attributed to the failed foreign policy of Joe Biden leading to all of these problems around the world is beginning to look very much like an orchestrated effort to undermine civilization and destroy the world. I mean, look at our southern border. What is the purpose of that? Why do the Germans have millions of people who aren't German in their country? Why have the Brits tolerated several million people coming to their country who aren't British? They aren't English, they aren't Welsh, they aren't Scots. They're not Manx. Yep. You're British then. Me? I'm not British. That's just funny. That's just funny. So let's go to Ancestry.com. Okay, let's go to Ancestry.com. Let's see. DNA. Okay, origins. Let's go there. Hang tight, folks. Going to pull up a map for you. Here you go. Here you go. So, let's do this really quickly here. And I will bring this up. Okay. Okay. All right. British. That's funny. That's funny. I'm an American, not British. This is not part of the United Kingdom and has not been for ever since we sent them packing a long time ago. Let me bring this up. Okay. And you guys can look at this and we'll talk about it. Okay. All right. Come on. It takes a while to get all this stuff down from saving a screen capture. Where's it at? Why didn't it save? What the heck? Hang on a second, folks. It didn't save. I got to find out why it didn't save. That's strange. Okay. Where did that save? Let's try this again. Well, that's why it saved it in the wrong place. Okay, got it. Okay, got it now. Hang on. Be patient. Be patient. Stick with me a second. Okay, now I got it. There we go. Okay, there you go. All right, folks. So I'm British, huh? I'm British. So says Mr. Legend. There's my ancestor right there. And there you go. All right. England, Northwestern Europe, 38%. Germanic Europe, 21%. Ireland, 18%. Scotland, 13%. Sweden and Denmark, 10%. That's of my DNA. Not to mention Neanderthal DNA. It's also part of my makeup. Yep. That is not British. That is not British. I'm an American, and those are my ethnic origins. Yeah, so keep trolling, buddy. Keep trolling. You're not getting anywhere with that nonsense. All right, so what's this? Somebody said colonies. What's this? Helen was born in Namibia, but have a South African birth certificate, so what am I? Well, technically, you're a South African national by birth if you want to be, but you're a Namibian citizen by birth as well. So you got to, I suppose you were supposed to pick when you turned 21. All right, John Legend, we're done with you. You're just being silly. The Khoi killed my Portuguese ancestor in the Cape Town. No Nguni yeah, there are no Nguni tribes there. Yep. Isn't there a distinction between human migration and colonization? How so? How so, LMC? Good to see you there, LMC. It's been a while. Usually you just make snarky comments on the videos. Nice to see you in the chat. Well, let's put this in perspective. What is colonization? Colonization, and I'll give you a perfect example of it, not by white people. Colonization is the arrival and the imposition of an alien political system and or belief system on a group of people, supplementing the system they had and or subjugating to that. So a perfect example of colonization would be Liberia. Liberia was settled by free blacks and former slaves from America. When they arrived in Liberia, the groups there, the Mandingos and all the other groups who were in Liberia, the crew who lived in Liberia, did not have a political system even remotely akin to what we see in Europe or America. The United States had a system of representative democracy. The free blacks who lived as free citizens in America and the former slaves who now lived as free citizens in America lived under a system they were familiar with. When they arrived in Liberia, they imposed a system that they knew. Their government is a mirror image of the United States. It's a bicameral legislature with a House of Representatives and a Senate, just like America. It has a constitution, just like America. It has a president, just like America. It has counties, just like states do in America. And it named its major cities and places after people in America. Monrovia, named after James Monroe. Maryland County, named after the state of Maryland, because settled by people from Maryland. It imposed an alien culture and an alien political system and beliefs on the population there. The Americo-Liberian community was never more than 5% of the population of Liberia at any given point throughout its history since the 1820s, when they began settling there. Yet they ruled the country. Now, you don't have to be a minority to colonize. The Franks colonized France. The Germanic tribe of the Franks left Eastern Europe, crossed the Oder River at Frankfurt an der Oder, later crossed the Main River at Frankfurt am Main, continued west and settled after pressure from the Han and from the Golden Horde. They moved west. They settled in what is northern France today, the Franks. And they are the antecedent roots of the French people today. However, France is full of Languedoc people. It's full of Spanish people. It's full of Celtic people. It's full of Germanic people who are still Germanic, all kinds of people. But they became the French. They colonized that. An alien system they imposed. Then the Romans came and colonized them with an alien system. Yeah. So that's what colonization is. Human migration is only human migration if you move into an empty space. Be careful with that argument, LMC, because then some Afrikaner historians will say that's what the Great Trek was, human migration, not colonization. The Trek Boers moved into empty space. But it was an artificiality created not as a consequence of human settlement, but as a consequence of the Mfukane, where people fled from the Ndebele who were fleeing from the Zulu. So be very careful about that description, because there will be legitimate arguments to make that case. Migration is people moving from one place to another that's unoccupied. But imposing an alien political system, a system, culture, beliefs, or religion or culture on other peoples is colonization. And it's been done by human communities throughout history. Cuba was colonized by the Spanish. And who rules it today? The Spanish, still today. Yet South Africa doesn't say they need to liberate Cuba or the indigenous island people of Cuba from the Spanish. They don't say that. So LMC, I think I've addressed your question. William Rawl says, Franz Kronia also spoke regarding the sale of our foreign policy. It is if true, it's essentially a money laundering scheme. Yeah, it could be. It is treason. I agree with you 100%. Yep. Hey, Miss Tukatela, I hope you're feeling better today. Human cultures are dynamic. Some cultures disappear while new ones are formed for various reasons. Exactly. For instance, people look at Germany today, and then the Namibians want to blame Germany for a genocide, but it was the German Empire. But there's no such thing as Germany until 1870. 1871, the German Empire became Germany. Prior to that, there was no Germany. There was no Italy before the 1870s. It didn't exist. It never existed. Germany was a combination of over 300 principalities, fiefdoms, dukedoms, knightdoms, kingdoms throughout the German-speaking regions. And it wasn't even all the German-speaking regions that became part of Germany. Germany is comprised of Württemberg, Baden, Hesse, Schleswig, Thüringen, Bayern, Schlesien, Pommern, Oberschlesien, and many, many more. The Americans returning Liberia threw their passports in the sea when they arrived next day looking at the beach. No, I don't know anything about that story. I've never heard that, Clarissa. That's interesting, though. From my father's side, British still working. My mother's side, she was P.W. Bota's niece. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. Less than 2,000 free blacks relocated to Liberia. Black. Actually, that's factually incorrect. And it really isn't germane. What did I just say? I said that the Americo-Liberian population was never more than 5% of the population. When the Civil War ended, Liberia had 3 million people. So 5% of that is 150,000 people descended from that group. And it was not 2,000 people. The Americo-Liberians came to Liberia and died in massive numbers because they had no resistance to malaria and tropical diseases. Why? Because the free blacks and the free slaves who came from America, their ancestors had lived in North America, which was free of those diseases for decades. And the DNA genetic resistance to that was whittled away. And the suffering was immense. The letters in the archives of Maryland and Annapolis from those who settled in Liberia that sent back are heart-wrenching. Burying my child, burying my wife, burying my other child. The destitution that they suffered, the misery that they had in Liberia. Yeah. Far more than 2,000 Americo-Liberians went to Liberia. Yep. More than that died alone from tropical diseases. Yes, Trump won again. I talked about someone owning the conversation. I hope is gaining an education. Yes, Marilyn, I hope so. But I'm not just addressing that guy's comments. Let's say, what's this? Old Prussia became part of Germany, then Russia. Well, then the Soviet Union, now part of Russia. James Moriarty is here, my old nemesis. They call me Sherlock. Moriarty. He's at it again. Pope ruled central Italy for 1,000 years. Yep, that's true. The Papal States ran it for a long time. There was no Italy. No Italy. Anyway, that's the reality, folks. But it has given us an opportunity to educate some folks here this afternoon. And hopefully it's paying off. I bet you I have no solar power. Wow, I have 0 watts produced today. I guess they're covered in snow. I have to go check on my roof and see what's going on. Yep. Who is Charles Young? Where is the Bafana Bafana shirt? I don't have a Bafana Bafana shirt. This is a Wallaby, an Australian Rugby League World Cup hoodie. You can see the inside. It's got all the stuff. This is Australian colors. You can see the roo over here, the kangaroo, and the Rugby League World Cup 2021, played in 2022 in England, which I went to. Yep. There's no ANC colors here. It's unfortunate that Australia's colors are very similar to the African National Congress, but this is not an ANC thing. It is a Australia thing. So anyway. Oh, that guy. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Oh, okay, sorry. Well, you gave me out of context. Named Charles Young. There's millions of people named Charles Young. You're talking about the U.S. Army officer who was assigned to Liberia to help build the territorial force in the early part of the 20th century. Is that who you're referring to, Manaj Akwa? Is that who you're referring to? If that's who you're referring to, I know exactly who you're talking about. In fact, I'll be speaking at Cornell University in April about Liberia. I've been invited back once again. Yep, no, I know about him. I've talked about him before many times. It's ironic that Liberia had no military force, and then we sent black Army officers there who created a military, the first military, which had 500 members, the Territorial Defense Force of Liberia. Yeah, no, I know who that is. I will be speaking once again. I spoke a couple years ago while I was still in the Army at Chicago about Liberia, and I've been asked to go back. This time they're being sponsored. They've got some good money from Cornell University, and I'll be appearing there speaking at the event. So that'll be pretty cool. That's in April. Yep. Yep. Anyway, yep. Manaj Akwa, how you doing? Chris Swanepoel's here. Peter Swanepoel married a German lady, Maria Zachs. That's pretty cool. Yeah, no, it is awesome, Manaj Akwa. It's also really nice for people to remember me and ask me to come back. I mean, remember the award I got? Is it here? Let me see if I've got it handy. The award I got from Liberia. It's got it here somewhere. I don't keep it handy, but let me see if it's in here. I don't know where I left it at. It's around here somewhere. This box is full of kit and spare parts and stuff and cables and things like that. So as you can see, as a beekeeper, I stick close to my origins here. You can see this box is a beekeeping box, honey. I think it might be in this box here. Natural History of the Honeybee. Let me see if it's in here. I've got it somewhere. I'm just looking. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay, cool. I've got the medal, so I found it. Okay, cool beans. Oh, I also found my media passes. Here you go. Some of my media passes. This one is for the DC team. This one is for it's the CPAC conference in Florida. This one is for Old Glory, DC. Yep. Anyway. That's some of my media passes there. Pretty cool stuff. All right, let me. I got this in the UK. I don't know why I bought this. This was for the Queen. Yep, this was her Platinum Jubilee. It's a plate. I picked that up when I was in the UK a couple years ago. I don't really care for monarchies, but I figured this is kind of a neat thing. So let me show you this real quick. Come on. This box is hard to get into. I think I might have bought this at. Where did I buy this at? I can't remember where I bought this at. Anyway. It's got a little certificate on it for those who like plates. There you go. There's the Queen for her Jubilee. Anyway. Excuse me. Yep. All right. So there you go. 1952 to 2022. Anyway, let me just get to this board I was talking about there. So I always get a kick out of the people that make them run their mouths like, "Oh, so full of yourself. Yeah, this, that, and the other." Look what I had to do to just go find this. I didn't even know where it's at. So this is the medal that was awarded to me by the government of Liberia for my efforts in Liberia. It's called the Distinguished Service Order Gold, which is the highest order. I understand only 18 people have ever been awarded this decoration from the government of Liberia, and I'm one of them. This is for my efforts to rebuild the armed forces of Liberia. So that's the national award that I was given by Liberia, a national award. How cool is that? That is super cool. I need to get this medal reproduced by somebody. It's pretty cool. That's really awesome. Really grateful that they made that. So, yeah, not the highest quality medal, but it came from Liberia, so it was produced there. So pretty cool, huh? Yep, a national award for my efforts at rebuilding it, post-conflict Liberia. Pretty cool stuff. Brian Lawrence, South African, bored to the bone, even though he's got an Anglophone name. The Russians moved most of the Germans out of there and replaced them with Russian-speaking people. That's true, Charles. They didn't move them out of there. Most of the Germans fled, and those who didn't flee were forced out or gang raped and so on. Most of the Germans fled from there before the Soviet Red Army ever approached. There are today about 5,000 ethnic Germans left in what is known as the Kaliningrad Oblast, which is Königsberg. But that is just a sliver of what used to be East Prussia. So yeah, yep. Yeah, that's the truth. Did not Liberia have two? So yes, Liberia did have a couple brutal civil wars. That's correct. And I was there at the end of the Civil War, rebuilding the armed forces of Liberia. And it's been a successful effort thus far. Hopefully, it will continue to be the case going forward. But that all hinges on governance in the country itself. Yes, it was Königsberg. It's where Frederick the Great was crowned the emperor. Yep, or king. Yeah, that's where he was crowned at, Frederick the Great. Königsberg. Yeah, they absolutely destroyed that area, turned it into a military base. Yep, absolutely crazy stuff, folks. 99 likes. Hey, that's pretty good. Can we get to 100? No super chats. Bummer there. No super chats. But thank you all so much. I'm going to have to I'm going to have to shovel some snow out here in a little while. So that's going to be interesting. Tomorrow is going to be a busy day. It's going to be a busy day tomorrow, folks. Lots going on. Okay. What else? Some folks aren't capable of being educated. Well, that's true, Ken. And some people just disagree with people and then they run away. I disagree with some folks, but I don't dismiss them or run away. I'll listen to them anyway. But the world is full of, abhorrent behavior. And it's really a shame. But we are really, seriously, ladies and gentlemen, on the precipice of some very scary stuff happening globally. I mean, we ran through the list of things earlier. I even neglected to mention one of them, which was Taiwan. Salty crackers. Yeah, salty something. Salty tears for sure. I mean, the left is actually crying right now in their milk. They're plotting their next move to undermine, I think, short of an assassination attempt or outright arrest and imprisonment of Donald Trump, they're running out of games to play. I mean, they've tried everything in the world. Classified documents. Well, Joe Biden was revealed to be stealing classified documents, not taking them by mistake, and doing it for over a decade. So that story's died off. Russia collusion? Well, it's actually Joe Biden that colludes with Russia. Well, actually, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama collude with Russia. Denying Ukraine, offensive weapons, it was actually Obama that denied them, and Trump that delivered the anti-tank weapons to Ukraine before the war began. The fraud and misstating the value of his assets to get a loan from Deutsche Bank, that's actually bogus. Deutsche Bank themselves said that they accepted the value. They did due diligence. The loans were made. The loans were paid back. This is all fraud being perpetrated by a corrupt attorney general who should be impeached, disbarred, and charged with crimes for her actions in New York, Letitia James. It's unreal. It's unbelievable what's going on. Once again, folks, to be clear, I'm not a MAGA supporter. I'm not a Trump guy. But I am a conservative, and I'm also a person who deals in facts and truth and not hyperbole and supposition. If it's supposition, I'll tell you it's supposition. For instance, like apparently Roman Kabanak on his show is now saying that South Africa, he's accusing them of getting money from Iran to foment discord. It seems very plausible, but I have no evidence of that. If I tell you that, if I make the allegation, I'll say it. And I'll tell you it's an allegation. It's analytical. It's an opinion. Yep. The world seems a lot more chaotic now than it was when I was growing up, except maybe 9/11. Actually, Radine, the world seems a lot more chaotic now than it did in 2019. In 2019, the world was in much better shape. And that's ultimately why Iowa voters went overwhelmingly for Donald Trump last night, because they yearn for 2019. And actually, I yearn for 1990. That's what I yearn for. The world was much quieter, much safer, much better off. But unfortunately, a lot of people live behind the Iron Curtain, or what was left of the Iron Curtain, and were oppressed in Eastern Europe and around the world. They remain oppressed today in Tehran, in Iran, in North Korea, in Australia, in Venezuela, in Canada, in North Korea. Yep. LMC says it could be that when you're growing up, you're less aware of the world politics. Well, that's a possibility, LMC, and that's a fair statement. I would tell you that growing up, I was very well aware of world events. A lot was happening when I was a young man. A lot was happening. Liberation movements in Africa, in Rhodesia, in Southwest Africa, in Angola, the MPLA, the FNLA under Holden Roberto, and of course, UNITA under Jonas Savimbi. All of that was happening when I was a young man. The Bush Wars. Then, of course, we had the Munich, the Israeli athletes murdered, kidnapped, taken hostage. We had America's bicentennial. We had the Shah of Iran leaving Iran. We had the Soviets invading Afghanistan. Iran being overthrown by religious zealots, Lebanon attacking Israel and then being invaded. The list goes on and on and on. Of course, I skipped over the Yom Kippur War. All of this as a young man happening all around me. Then when I came in the Army, the world was getting crazy again too. The week I went in the Army, the United States invaded Grenada to overthrow a communist government there supported by Cuba, protect American medical students. Yeah. We had Beirut, the bombing. U.S. sent peacekeepers, and what was the response? They murdered Marines, sailors, airmen, and civilians. Yep. Maybe the American voters waking up. I'm not going to hold my breath, Ken, because remember, those were Republicans last night, although some Democrats skewed the table, but those who actually voted were primarily Republicans last night. That was a Republican primary. So don't hold your breath yet. The fact that Joe Biden gets any votes shows you just how disconnected people are from reality. The Democrats successfully hoodwinked the country after the Dobbs decision by the Supreme Court in 2022 and essentially hijacked the narrative and lied to the public saying that abortion is over. They're taking away reproductive rights. They'll stop abortion. Well, first off, if you are so hell-bent on murdering children in the womb, there's something morally wrong with you. If you want to murder an American citizen in the womb because it's inconvenient for you. Sorry. Unless your life is in jeopardy, you don't have a legitimate argument in most cases. But it's also lies. Abortion remains legal in all 50 states. 2 years later, it's legal in all 50 states. It hasn't changed. They successfully rewrote the narrative with the collusion of the legacy media who ran stories every day lying about abortion. Acting like Cassandras, running around like Karens. Oh, the Republicans! Ah! And the Republicans, the cowering party that many of them are, did exactly what they always do. They kept their mouths silent instead of telling the truth. And I said the entire time the truth. I told people right here, I said exactly what's going on. I told you, I said, listen. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. People are still having abortions all over the country. There are some restrictions, but I mean, some people are absolutely crazy when there are lack of restrictions. New York State allows abortions up to birth. 9 months pregnant, you can decide to terminate the life of the child in your womb. That's murder. That's insane. And they successfully took that argument and convinced voters that they would lose their reproductive rights, which took a whole bunch of women off the table and a bunch of lunatic leftist men off the table too, who weren't even votes available for candidates to compete on because Republicans didn't tell the truth about the issue. Frustrating. Why is Iowa so important? Well, at the end of the day, Ken, it's not. It's not. Iowa has not picked the winner of the presidency since 2000. The Iowa caucuses didn't pick Trump in 2016. They didn't pick Bush in 2004. The last time they picked the winner, I think, was 2000. So Iowa's not that important at the end. Iowa, as the leftist race-hustling slimeball Joy Reid liked to say last night, it's too white and too Christian. About 90% of the population is white, and most of the population is Christian, despite the lies. Or last night, 40% are Christian. That's a lie. That's a lie. Over 70+% of this country are Christians. This is just the nonsense that these people run with. So it can be a litmus test. But last night, I think for the first time since 2000, Iowa did matter because Trump got over 50%, which has never happened before. Trump won by 30%, which more than doubles the highest margin ever in a caucus. And his supposed challengers were proven to be empty vessels. DeSantis and Haley achieved nothing last night. Vivek Ramaswamy withdrew from the race, and so that reduces. Asa Hutchinson should also withdraw from the race. He's just wasting people's time. So, yeah. Abortion, like climate change, is a religion to the people who believe in it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Why all the media hype? Because it's first. Because it gets the presidential election going. It gives them something to talk about. They make money off of it. And it's a tradition for Iowa. So that's why. That's why. That's why it's all about. Grasshopper says, spot on, Colonel. Trump kept some degree of global stability. He kept a lot of global stability. North Korea stopped firing nuclear capable missiles over the sea space of Korea and over the airspace of Japan, which is an act of war. That stopped. ISIS was obliterated. We withdrew from Iraq. We largely withdrew from Afghanistan, only keeping troops there to train forces. Malevolent behavior by malicious actors was curbed all across the world. And I don't know if it's because Trump was particularly effective, but I think they just feared Trump. So anyway, But the world is upside down, folks. We got some serious problems in the world today, some serious problems. And I don't understand why anybody in their right mind could have voted for Joe Biden. 81 million people. Somebody needs an azimuth check. Something seriously wrong with these people. A lot of South Africans trace their ancestry those times. Did you know Jan van Riebeeck arrived at Cape with Hungarian and Swiss mercenaries? Yep, sure did. When is the Democratic... it happened. The Democratic caucus was last night, but the Democrats didn't vote. A caucus is a gathering of people from a political party to discuss issues and or select candidates. It can be both. So, for instance, you have the Congressional Black Caucus. It's a body that meets periodically to discuss issues that are supposedly black issues in Congress. You have the Freedom Caucus, which is in the House of Representatives. We have a Freedom Caucus here in Pennsylvania as well. And they are like-minded legislators who get together to craft legislation or to rescind legislation that is appropriate or inappropriate. So that's a caucus. The Democrats had their caucus. They discussed party policy last night. They didn't have a vote because they were afraid to have a vote. They could have had a vote. There will be a primary for Democrats in March in Iowa, but it's a foregone conclusion. New Hampshire, Joe Biden knew that he wouldn't do well there, so he didn't even get on the ballot. So he's not on the ballot in New Hampshire. So they're ignoring that. They are waiting for South Carolina, which has about 40% of the population is black, thinking that Joe Biden is very popular amongst black people, which is the dumbest thing ever. I don't know why people who are black vote for Joe Biden. He's an unrepentant racist. His comments about black people and Indians and others are just repellent. His behavior is repulsive, and he's never done anything to help black Americans. In fact, he's the guy that tried, he said blacks were a threat, when court order busing took place. He fought court order busing, integration of schools. His only piece of legislation in 30 years plus in the Senate was the crime bill in 1990s during the Clinton administration, which came with the 3 strikes and you're out, which put tens, thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of black men in jail for mandatory minimum 10-year sentences. That's his. Now, I'm not saying criminals shouldn't be in jail, but I'm saying that's his singular accomplishment. Why would black people like someone like that? Donald Trump gave more money to historically black colleges and universities than any president in history. I don't agree with that. I think they should be private institutions, not state institutions, but that's another story. And I don't have anything against historically black college universities as long as they don't discriminate against anyone who wants to go there. However, Joe Biden has done nothing for those schools, not a damn thing. He hasn't given them anything. He's been president for 3 years. What has he done for them? Nothing. Nothing. Donald Trump met with leaders from black communities around the country every week. Every week he had meetings. Once a week, worst case, every other week when world events overcame things. He met with church leaders, with local political leaders, from urban centers, from rural areas, all over the country, all the time, throughout his administration, getting his policy from feedback from people representing black Americans. Didn't do that for Native Americans, didn't do that for white Americans, didn't do that for Hispanics, did it for blacks. Yet the media never covered that. They never talked about it. He had the Platinum Plan, which is a plan to invest in depressed black communities where businesses have fled because of crime and because of poor infrastructure and bad social behavior. Didn't talk about it. The media ignored it. Not to mention Trump brokering the Abraham Accord. Well, actually, it was Jared Kushner who did that on behalf of Donald Trump, the Abraham Accords. Yeah, brilliant. The most successful peace agreement in the history of the Middle East. Yeah, John Legend says facts. Well, I'm giving you facts. I don't know what you're talking about. If you don't vote for being Biden, you ain't black. That's what he said. Yep. Ken Anderson says, so being taken off the ballot means nothing, a la Colorado. Well, it does mean something, Ken. So, for instance, I'd have to look at the rules for Colorado's primary because the parties determine the rules. If, for instance, in Iowa, it's tied to proportional vote. But in many states, it's winner take all. And I think Colorado's a winner take all. So, and I don't know if they're bound. There's also the position like Pennsylvania has delegates, but some of them aren't bound. Even though a candidate wins the popular vote, some of the delegates are authorized to change their vote at the convention, which is confusing. But not many states do that. So I don't know the specific rules for Colorado. But in theory, what would happen is that Colorado, let me see, how many delegates does Colorado have? Okay. So 37 delegates. So if Trump is not on the ballot in Colorado, which he currently is, but if he's not on the ballot on March 5th for the presidential primary, then he couldn't compete in theory for the 37 delegates. But you need 1,250 to get the nomination. So Trump could win the nomination without Colorado. So, yeah, he's off the ballot in Maine, but Maine only has a handful of them as well. Is it possible for Trump to be president with an indictment? Of course it is. Well, there's no reason Zuma can't stand because you don't have term limits and you're not selected by the public. You're selected by Parliament. Somebody can be president forever, if I'm not mistaken, for South Africa's constitution. It doesn't matter if you're indicted. You can be criminally indicted, you be convicted. You can still serve as president. There's no prohibition on it. What will happen if North Korea invades South Korea again? Well, it's going to be chaos. It's going to be chaos. Utter chaos. Even my cat likes you. Always known as neutral safe, their army was initially strongest after they got their independence from Austria. What are you talking about? Is it a coincidence that Paul Kruger went to Switzerland? No, there's no conspiracy. No conspiracy whatsoever. As was said there, it is a neutral country that is long established. The Swiss Guard have protected the Vatican for centuries. Those are Swiss soldiers who work for the Vatican and are essentially the military defense of the Vatican. Yep. I could be wrong, Paulie. I could be wrong about that. I could be wrong. So I'm not saying it's a fact. No, historically, that's just been the norm. Let me just see if there's a limit. Real quick. How many terms? Again, I'm a little under the weather, so I might be misspeaking. South Africa. Oh, 2 terms. You're correct. 2 terms. 2 terms. Okay. President elected by Parliament for 5-year term may only serve 2 terms. Okay, it is 2 terms. Sorry, correct. Yep. Only 2 terms in South Africa. Okay. Yeah, so Zuma can't come back then. Yep, he can't come back. Yep. You're correct, Paulie. Sorry, like I said, I'm under the weather here. Still a little groggy here. 113 likes. Thanks for that, folks. That's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Awesome sauce. Hey, folks, let me show you what it looks like outside here. This is before I did the broadcast. Let me find this real quick. Come. Where's it at? Here, gallery pictures. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. There you go, folks. That's what it looks like outside. Woo, baby. Look at there. Look at there. Nothing but snow. Snow. Just hear those sleigh bells ring-a-ling. Jing, jing, jing-a-ling, jing. It's time for a sleigh ride together with you. Giddy up, giddy up, giddy up, giddy up, yip, yip. Yeah, it's snowing here in central Pennsylvania. South Africans probably going, what? Snow? That's just crazy. No, he didn't finish the second term. It's still considered a second term. That's correct. Yep. Yeah. Ken says, brr. The South African term for president is 5 years. USA, it's 4. South Africa, 5. France, it's 6, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Viking weather. Yep, that's right. No wattage today. And I think my panels are completely covered by snow because they got 0 watts generated today. Yep, so I'm going to have to go out and see if I can't clear them off. Anyway, it looks cold outside. It is cold outside. It is, let me see what the temperature is outside, folks. Oh, Asa Hutchinson has suspended his campaign. All right, Asa Hutchinson has suspended his campaign. It is currently 27 degrees outside, which is below freezing. Yep, light snow. Yeah, Asa Hutchinson has suspended his campaign. That's another person to drop out now. So Ramaswamy and Asa Hutchinson are out of the race. Hutchinson should have suspended before I don't know what he was hanging around for. Maybe hoping, living on a prayer. Living on a prayer. Yeah, but Asa Hutchinson has suspended his campaign. He got no traction. And Vivek Ramaswamy. So 2 fall. Iowa claims 2 casualties from the presidential primaries race in the Republican Party. Yep. In Russia, it's a lifetime. In Korea, it's forever. Huh? Anyway. No, he can't serve another term, George. He can't serve another term. Flesh says, my wife loves snow, and we rarely get any, but it's freezing here. Yeah, I heard it's quite cold in the UK. I hadn't taken a look at the temperature there. Yep. Chris needs to build a snowman. No snowman. No snowman. Excuse me. Excuse me, folks. I wonder what'll happen when I go out and shovel the snow, if I'll be hacking like that, hacking up a lung. But you can be rest assured I'll be wearing shorts when I go out. You can be rest assured I'll be wearing shorts when I go out. Anyway, thank you all for tuning in today. I really, really do appreciate it. Any final questions before we wrap up here today, folks? Tomorrow, I will do my broadcast early, and then I'll be on with Ronaldo. But I have to depart the meeting with the presentation with the broadcast with Ronaldo early because I've got a meeting. Yeah, we're hit pretty hard with that global warming. Yep, absolutely. It's vicious, man. It's absolutely vicious, that global warming, man. It's a bear. It's a bear. Well, because of the views now, I've shot up. Yesterday had 7,800 views. That's good. I used to get 10 to 15,000 views per day in the old days on the original channel, which we don't get anymore. But here we average maybe 1,000, 2,000 per day, 2,500 on average. I had 8,000 yesterday. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. And now that means 10,000, 11,000 over the last 48 hours, which is awesome. Yep. And today we had 302 at 12 o'clock and 275 at 11 o'clock. That's pretty awesome. All right. One of the off-grid channels I watch, maybe Maple Mountain Ranch is drowning in snow. I don't know what that is, Maple Mountain Ranch. What's going to happen in Israel? Well, hopefully Israel will finish its campaign against Hamas soon, and then they're going to wind up rebuilding Gaza. The world will. We'll all pay for it. In Augusta, Maine, snowing, 25 degrees, sleeping in your car. Why are you sleeping in your car, Shannon? That is not safe to do. Make sure your engine isn't running. We don't want you to die of carbon monoxide poisoning. That's a horrible way for someone to go. When are you going to the doc? I went to the doc, Dan. I went to the doc. I went to a military treatment facility over a week ago. They gave me methylprednisone, a steroid. They took a chest x-ray, and that's all they did for me. So here I am a week later. Oh, toxic mold. Shannon, I'm so sorry to hear that, but gosh, sleeping in your car is not good. Yeah, no, I went to see this cold, Dan. I went. This is the care we get. Here it is now 6 weeks since this cough began. Yep. It's still here. I don't know what's causing it, what it is. And there are no other symptoms. Nothing else is happening. So I don't know what to say about it. But it is the reality that I'm dealing with here. So I don't get treatment at the Veterans Administration. I'm eligible. I'm combat disabled, or not combat. I'm combat disabled, but I'm a disabled veteran and qualify for free medical care from the Veterans Administration based on my service. However, I don't get my care there. I get my care at the military treatment facility, which makes me begin to question why am I doing it, given how long it takes them to give me appointments. It's ridiculous. But I do have a follow-up appointment that they rescheduled me for here in late January. What's the date of that? Actually, February 1st is when I go back. So that's still a good 2 weeks away. I need to go to a private doctor. Well, Bruce, that will require money, but I'm just a poor retiree who spends all his money going to South Africa trying to inform the world, not getting compensated. So Dan's worried about me. Well, thank you, Dan. I appreciate the concern. I appreciate the concern from everybody. I'm also concerned, folks. I've never had an affliction like this before. Although a couple years ago, I did have a cough for a long time, but there was no mucus. It was just a cough. There was nothing in it. This has a little bit of mucus, but not much. And it's not nasty mucus. It just looks like regular old snot, and it's not much. So, yeah, I'm also concerned. I appreciate your concern about my welfare. That's very kind of you. Hopefully I can get resolution here. But the care that I get is not ideal. And seeing private doctors cost a fortune. And getting an appointment costs a fortune. Doctors aren't always taking new patients. So you wind up going to a emergency room in a medical treatment facility, sitting outside waiting forever, being exposed to all kinds of other things. And then you get treated and you get charged a fortune for it. So slept in your car before, it's not too bad. Don't sleep with the engine on. No, I've slept in my car many times, but never with the engine running. No, there's no post-nasal drip, Charles. No, it's a really weird situation. Although my nasal passages were inflamed, and so they gave me also Flonase to take twice a day. So put the little up there. But yeah, so Flonase, steroids, and the steroids are almost over. The world is aware of everything in South Africa. What? LMC? No, they're not. No, they're not. When I tell Americans that 82 people are murdered in South Africa every day, they're gobsmacked. When I tell Europeans that, they're like, what? 82 people murdered every day. That's more people than are murdered in the United States, a country 6 times as large as South Africa. Please Google the use of pure honey for coughing. All right, you know what, Frederick? I've got honey. I've got a fresh batch of honey, which was given to me by Mike, who's not here today, who I went and was a guest speaker at his organization a couple months ago. I've got honey. I'm going to take it. So what do? Just take a spoonful. I've got pure honey. I'm going to try it. It's not a spicy cough. LMC says not the average person, but the leaders. You're right, LMC. You're right. You are correct. And that's because they like what's happening in South Africa. They love the chaos. They love the ability to grift. Yeah, no, they don't care what's happening in South Africa. Just like they didn't care during apartheid. They just misled people. 80% of Americans don't even know where South Africa is. That's not true, George. That's not true. Where's your evidence for that, man? Tempting that sweet tooth kernel with the honey. Yeah, I do have a sweet tooth. Yep. Well, I had honey in my tea the other day. Yeah, Ken, lots of... I can't. I have to go places on a moment's notice all the time. So I can't be drinking unless it's late at night. I mean, like I had to go in yesterday to the VFW to sign checks. And then it started snowing while I was in there. And while I was there, I met a retired sergeant major for the Pennsylvania National Guard who works in the correctional services doing investigations. And she's a member of our post. I never met her before. And spent 40 minutes trying to tell her about the post and get her, to get involved because we need more veterans involved. Honey and fresh lemon juice and warm water drink cut through the phlegm. Well, I need to stop producing the phlegm and get rid of the viral infection. How do I get rid of the viral infection? That's what I want to know. No one has an answer for that. Hey, Bruce. No one has an answer for that. All right, folks, it's been 2 hours. I'd love to stay. And 78 people. I really hate to depart with 78 people here, but I'm going to have to depart. Guys, a great show turnout today for the program. Thank you so much for that. I do need to go shovel snow before it gets too far behind me. Plus, I got some phone calls to make. Forerunners, so the engine shuts off after so long. I worked at VA, resigned. They're pretty upside down. Well, actually, Shannon, I don't disagree with that, but the VA here in Pennsylvania, the Lebanon Medical Treatment Facility, is ranked amongst the top 10. It's been one of the top 3 VA medical centers in one of the top dozen or so countries in the country here for the past 2 decades. It's an amazing facility. It's an old building that's been completely renovated some years ago, and their care is amazing. When I went there for my physical that the VA gave me, I went there in February of 2020, and when I arrived there, it was an amazing experience. They treated me very well. They conducted all the stuff, a very nice cafeteria to sit down in. I went back for some follow-up appointments, and within 3 weeks, they made the determination that I qualified for VA care and was at least 50% disabled. And so they put me in the system without even me asking, took care of all that. They were wonderful. The only problem for me is Lebanon is about 45 minutes away. It's a toll road, and I got to pay a fortune to go there and come back. Although I could get VA care closer, that's where it's at. More closer to me, just 10 miles away, 15 kilometers, is a VA clinic, which is nearby, and I could get care there if I go to the VA. I'll eventually go to the VA, but just not yet. Artie Pandey, stream ending as they join. Well, where you been hanging out, man? Where you been hanging out? Yeah, it's about to end because I need to go. And by the way, Shannon, I have a 4Runner as well. I have a 2004 Toyota 4Runner. What's the top edition? I can't remember what it's called, but I got the big one, the V8. It's got everything in it. So yeah, still have it. My Toyota 4Runner has been all over America, from Maryland to Florida to New England. It has been in Germany, all over Europe. It has been in Botswana, South Africa, Namibia, Swaziland. It's also been in Uganda and Ethiopia. That thing has been all over the world, and I still have it. And I still have that vehicle and use it all the time. I love it. That incredible engine in there. That's when they still made good cars back in 2004. Now the crap they make is unbelievable. But yeah, I just put new tires on it a few months ago, which cost me a fortune. Yep. Husband lives in our house doing claims for the VA. Okay. All right. I'm graduating with my PhD in aeronautical engineering. Well, congratulations, ladies and gentlemen. Can we get a little applause for Artie Pandey for his PhD in aeronautical engineering? Wow. No wonder you've been away. I've been quite busy. Well, I'm glad to see you back there, man. We were wondering what was going on with you. Hey, folks, before y'all run off, can we get a little, a little love for Artie there? Give us some clapping or some thumbs up for congratulations for his PhD. That's awesome. Can you tell us where you got it granted from, if you don't mind? That's not an easy thing. So come on, I'm not going to go anywhere until people start congratulating Artie. Can I see some congratulations? Otherwise, I'm staying here. Don't make me stay here. There we go. There we go. Unreal, Artie. There you go. See? All right, that's better. That's better. Yeah. Artie's a gal. Really? Artie's a gal. I didn't know that. So All this time I could have been chatting you up and I didn't. Now I feel bad. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Artie's a girl. I didn't know that. Really? But your avatar, I mean, I can't see it very well. Could have been chatting Artie up all this time. Well, we'll have to make sure Artie's on the next tour for a meet and greet then. So he's got a lot of issues from mold, angry person. His job isn't good. Oh my goodness. Sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that. Hey, Jimmy, how's it going? Well, Grasshopper, why isn't the ANC not change his name to Vitz? I think the ANC should change his names to Witless. Anyway, congratulations to Artie. That's fantastic, man. That's fantastic. That's incredible stuff. That's incredible. Academic achievement is wonderful. It's awesome. And hopefully you'll add to the body of human knowledge now in aviation. It was aviation, right? Aeronautical. That's what you said, right? Go back and find that. Aeronautical engineering. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. That is incredible, man. All right. We'll be at the next tour. Yeah, absolutely. Whenever that's going to be, probably when the election is, or we'll see what's going on. Anyway, folks, I do need to run, and thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry to bail on you, but it has been 2 hours, and I do have other responsibilities. So we'll catch you guys later on. And she has short hair. Okay, well, grow your hair longer, Artie. All right, we'll see you all later on. Oops. I hear a snowplow coming through the neighborhood. Yep, there's a snowplow out there clearing the streets right now. Thank you, Grasshopper. I enjoyed the show. And congratulations to Donald John Trump for his tsunami in Iowa. And we'll catch you guys later on. Have a good evening. God bless and take care. Yeah, have fun shoveling snow. It won't be fun, but it does need to be done. I have to do it, so can't get away from it. And I don't have a snowblower. That would be cool. That'd be so nice, but I don't have one because that's what rich people have. All right. Whoa. Where'd I go? I disappeared. All right, folks. Have a good night, and we'll see you later on. If anything breaks, I'll cover the story. Take care of yourselves. Cheers, and thank you very much. Be sure to hit the like button. Bye-bye.